Y'all ever wonder what goes on in the mind of someone downright manipulative when they suddenly realize, my tricks ain't working anymore? When that person they're trying to control starts seeing through the whole dog and pony show? Hi, I'm T. Welcome. Let's get going. Today we're fixing to explore what happens when someone with traits of them cluster B personality disorders, particularly those narcissistic, borderline, and antisocial patterns, hits a wall with their manipulation. I've put together what you might call a profile, based on how these folks typically react. Now hold your horses. This here's just an example to understand some mighty complex behavior. It's not for diagnosing yourself or anybody else. You hear? So let's set the scene. Someone's been pulling strings like a puppet master, but suddenly they see the writing on the wall. Their target is wise to their games, standing their ground, and that control they've enjoyed is slipping away faster than greased lightning. How might they respond? Well, I'll tell you what. First off, when their high and mighty self-image takes a hit, you'll often see reactions that lean heavy on narcissistic traits. That first wave usually comes from what we call a narcissistic injury. It's like someone took a sledgehammer to their inflated sense of importance. One of the most common is narcissistic rage. Lord have mercy, you'll see anger hotter than a jalapeno on a Texas grill. Fury that makes no earthly sense given the situation. Now the reason for this often has to do with the shame under the surface. Underneath all that bluster, they're feeling shame and humiliation that cuts deep as a knife when their facade is challenged. Another common reaction is playing the victim. Quicker than you can say jackrabbit, they'll flip the script. They'll make out like they're the one being mistreated, not owning up to their part. And speaking of not owning up, there's a powerful ducking responsibility. You'll rarely catch them admitting they did a blessed thing wrong. According to them, it's always someone else's fault. Always blaming situations and others is another way to spot them. Sometimes their first move is flat-out denial. First thing out of their mouth might be, ain't nothing wrong here? Like a fox denying he's in the hen house, just brushing off the failure. If denial don't work, they start shooting the messenger. When cornered with proof, they'll try to discredit any evidence faster than a cat on a hot tin roof, calling it fake or saying you're crazy as a Betsy bug. This involves a lot of well-oiled lying too. Then there's the pointing fingers game. They'll turn around quicker than a whirligig and accuse you of being the manipulative one or of sabotaging them. They can also get mean as a cottonmouth. In closer relationships especially, their response can turn downright nasty. They will be yelling, undermining you publicly, or looking for revenge. Often they'll be rounding up a posse. They'll try to get others on their side, putting pressure on you from all directions, which is what folks call triangulation. Ask Gran, or let me ask John, he will tell you. They involve others to cover their deception. And if they reckon they've truly lost control, or you're no longer useful, get ready for the cold shoulder or outright discard. They might just up and leave you high and dry, treating you like you're insignificant, especially in more casual connections or when they feel thoroughly rejected. Now, right alongside all that, or sometimes fueling it, you'll see a whole heap of emotional turmoil and wild behavior that often reflects borderline traits. This part is usually driven by fear of being left alone or rejected that runs deeper than an old well, leading to what we call emotional dysregulation. For instance, their anger can be mad as a wet hen. It's like a summer storm, powerful, sudden, and way more intense than the situation seems to call for. But even when they're throwing a conniption fit, they might be hanging on for dear life. Underneath it all, their actions can be frantic efforts to keep you from leaving, driven by that deep fear of abandonment. You might also see them go hot and cold. One minute you're the best thing since sweet tea. The next minute, if they feel rejected or their manipulation failed, you're lower than a snake's belly. This is often called splitting. Get ready for some hollering accusations. When they're feeling that abandonment, they'll be screaming things like, "You never gave two hoots about me." Just another desperate attempt to maintain their hold of control. Sometimes, bless their hearts, they start threatening the unthinkable. Heaven forbid, they might threaten to harm themselves or even talk about suicide. Now y'all listen good. Always take such threats seriously and get professional help right away. Connected to that, you might see actual self-harm. They might hurt themselves physically as a way to try and handle them overwhelming feelings or to show how much distress they're in. This is where drugs and alcohol also play a role. They can also start acting without thinking. To cope with the emotional storm, they might turn to drink, drive like a bat out of hell, go on a spending spree, or other impulsive, self-sabotaging things. True that, they sabotage themselves driven by their underlying issues, usually deep trauma. Then comes the switch from hot mess to sweet talk. After raising Cain, they might try to patch things up quicker than you can say, "I'm sorry." But it's usually because they're scared of losing you, and these efforts to repair things might not show true, deep empathy for what they did. If they had true empathy, they wouldn't be manipulating you to start with. Finally, woven through all this, like a dark thread in a quilt, there's often an underlying coldness, a way of calculating things, and a lack of genuine concern for others that smacks of antisocial traits. The first thing you might notice is they can be cold as ice. There's just no genuine guilt or deep empathy for the other person's feelings. And that's the honest truth when you look past the drama. It's only a performance to fool you. They're also good at changing horses midstream. If one trick fails, they'll switch tactics faster than you can say, lickety-split, going from charm to threats in a heartbeat if they think it'll get them what they want. What they want, no matter the cost to you. And don't be surprised by them lying like a rug. If backed into a corner, or if it serves their purpose, they'll tell lies that would make Pinocchio blush, showing increased deceitfulness. Lastly, they're masters at passing the buck and rationalizing. They'll justify what they did 6 ways to Sunday, saying things like, "They had it coming," or "Only a fool would have trusted me," which shows how they externalize blame. So there you have it, plain as day. When someone with this mix of traits sees their manipulation failing, their reaction is about as predictable as a tornado, and sometimes just as destructive. It's often marked by that narcissistic rage, blame shifting, and punishing behavior, all stemming from a wounded pride. At the same time, they can be all over the place emotionally with those borderline-like reactions, splitting, lashing out, acting impulsively, and sometimes even threatening harm, often followed by confused attempts to make up that don't have a lick of real empathy, all while an undercurrent of antisocial-like calculation and callousness might be present. This profile points to someone whose relationships are likely stormier than hurricane season, full of conflict, push and pull, and destructive behavior whenever their control or importance is threatened. Even physical violence is common. The combination of narcissistic entitlement with borderline desperation and a touch of antisocial pragmatism creates a pattern thornier than a briar patch. So an adult who regularly shows several of these behaviors across these different patterns when their manipulation fails, especially because the other person is catching on, might be showing signs of some form of cluster B personality disorder. Now remember, this is just for understanding, not diagnosing. If you're worried about your own behavior or someone close to you, please do talk to a qualified mental health professional. They can provide the right assessment and support, and that's the gospel truth. Remember to subscribe or like. You choose. Bye now.